The coffee machine at the corner of 7th and Main beeped 3 times at 8:47 a.m. I counted because I was watching the steam curl off the paper cup and trying not to look at my phone. My hands were still shaking from the drive over. The temperature outside was 42 degrees and dropping. I'd left the car running with the heat on full blast because I couldn't feel my fingers. The text came in while I was fumbling with the lid. I saw my mother's name and thumbed it open without thinking. 2 sentences. The movers are here. Your brother wants to know if you're coming. I didn't answer. I just stared at those words and felt something in my chest go very, very quiet. Because she said your brother, not our. Because she said the movers are here, and I knew exactly what that meant, and I knew exactly what she'd done with the money. She'd texted me on my birthday too. Happy 18th, sweetheart. I hope you understand. Then the bank notification came through 5 minutes later. 0 balance. Every penny my grandmother had left me, gone in a single wire transfer. The house wasn't even built yet. She'd bought the lot on a Tuesday and signed the papers on a Wednesday, and the deed had my name on it because Grandma had been smarter than any of us gave her credit for. I let the phone drop into my bag and walked into the house anyway. That's when I saw my mother standing in the kitchen with a champagne flute in her hand. Eleanor, you made it. She smiled at me like nothing had happened. Isn't it beautiful your brother worked so hard on the renovations? My brother, Dan, appeared in the doorway behind her. He was wearing a new sweater, tags still on, and he had that look on his face. The one he'd worn our entire childhood, the one that said, I'm the one who deserves this. I pulled the folded court order out of my coat pocket and laid it flat on the counter between us. She saw the seal and her smile cracked just a little. What's that? She said. Read it. She picked it up like it might burn her. Dan came closer. I watched them both go pale in the same way, like they'd suddenly realized the ground under their feet wasn't solid anymore. The moving truck had been idling at the curb for 20 minutes. I'd hired them myself. Cash. No receipt. This property, I said, has been frozen pending a title review. And the title? Well, I pulled out the deed, the one Grandma's lawyer had sent me 3 months after my grandmother passed, the one I'd hidden in a safety deposit box she'd helped me open when I was 15. I unfolded it slowly. The original terms were very specific. It goes to me. Not him. Not you. Me. My mother's champagne glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the tile. Neither of us moved to clean it up. Dan was staring at the deed like he could will the words to change. His new sweater had a stain spreading across the chest where some of the champagne had splashed. Red wine. Or maybe it was something else. I didn't look closely. You don't need it, she'd said on my birthday. You have everything. Dan needs a fresh start. I looked around at the open concept kitchen, the marble countertops, the pendant lights my grandmother would have called tacky. Everything had been bought with my money. Every single thing. His housewarming just became mine, I said. The court will sort out the rest. But for now, I gestured toward the door. I'd like you both to leave. That was the moment something in my mother's face broke. She'd always been the one who won these fights. She had a way of smiling through the worst of it and making you feel like you were the one being unreasonable. I had never seen her look like she was losing. She looked small. You can't do this, Dan said. I walked past both of them and opened the front door. The moving crew was standing on the lawn, 6 men in blue coveralls, waiting for instructions. I pointed to the living room. Start with the furniture. Everything goes. I didn't look back to see their faces. I didn't need to. I already knew what they looked like when the floor fell out from under them. They'd stolen from me. And I'd just taken it all back. But that wasn't the beginning of the story. The beginning was 2 years earlier, in a different house, with a different betrayal, and a man who I'd thought was mine. The real question wasn't what I did to my mother and brother. The real question was how I'd gotten to a place where I was even capable of doing it. That story started in a kitchen too. But that one had been mine. I let my fingers rest on the deed, feeling the weight of it. The paper was warm from my pocket. Outside, the moving crew started hauling out a couch that had cost more than my first car. The sound of boots on hardwood echoed through the empty rooms. Someone in the driveway shouted. I didn't turn. I was done being the one who gave things away. It was a Tuesday in October when I found the receipt. I remember that because Tuesdays were my day off from the clinic, and I'd spent the morning making lasagna. The kind with 3 cheeses and the good sausage from the Italian market on Elm. Peter liked it, and I liked making things he liked. That was our arrangement, I guess. I gave. He took. And somewhere along the line, I'd convinced myself that was love. He came home at 6:15, 45 minutes late, and didn't mention it. He never did. He kissed me on the cheek and went straight to the refrigerator for a beer, and I watched him stand there with the door open, scanning the shelves like he was looking for something I hadn't bought. How was work? I asked. Fine. He popped the top and took a long pull. Busy. Laura's been on my ass about the quarterly reports. Laura was his assistant. 28 years old. Blonde. Thin. I'd met her at the company picnic 3 months earlier, and she'd shaken my hand with both of hers and said, "Mrs. Harrington, it's so nice to finally meet you." She'd held on too long. I'd thought it was just nerves. He sat down at the table and I served the lasagna. The whole time, he was looking at his phone. He tilted away when I walked past, just slightly, just enough that I noticed. I noticed everything. I just never said anything. After dinner, he went to the living room and turned on the game. I stayed in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher, and I found the receipt crumpled at the bottom of the trash can. It wasn't from a restaurant. It wasn't from the grocery store. It was from a place called the Peacock, and it was for a bottle of champagne, $128, and the date was a Thursday. A Thursday when he'd told me he was working late. I didn't recognize the name of the place. I looked it up on my phone with my hands shaking. It was a cocktail lounge on the other side of town. The kind with velvet seating and little candles on the tables. The kind you didn't go to alone. I put the receipt back in the trash and finished loading the dishwasher. I didn't confront him that night. I didn't sleep either. I lay in bed next to him and listened to him breathe and stared at the ceiling and thought about that Thursday, what I'd been doing while he was out. I'd been here, making dinner, waiting. That's when I started to wonder if he'd ever loved me at all. Or if I'd just been convenient. I didn't say anything for 3 weeks. I went to work, came home, made dinner, smiled when I was supposed to. I let him think everything was normal. And then I found this second receipt. This one was in his jacket pocket. The one he always wore to work. I found it on a Saturday morning when I was taking his things to the dry cleaner. I wasn't snooping. I was just picking up the jacket from the back of the chair, and a slip of paper fell out. I bent down to pick it up, and I saw the name on it. Laura's name. With a phone number. No, not her phone number. A phone number I'd never seen before. I called it from my cell that afternoon while Peter was at the hardware store. A woman answered. I didn't say anything. I just listened. Hello, hello. I hung up. That was the first moment I knew for sure. Not suspected. Knew. She wasn't just his assistant. She was something else. I didn't confront him then either. I was saving it. I'd learned a long time ago that the best time to strike was when the other person had no idea it was coming. My mother taught me that. She just taught it to me by doing it to me. On my 18th birthday, she called me into the kitchen and told me she'd used my trust fund to buy a house for Dan. She didn't ask. She didn't even pretend to ask. She handed me a card with a cartoon cake on it and said, "Happy birthday, sweetheart. I hope you understand." I was 18. I didn't know how to fight back. I just stood there and took it because that's what I'd always done. I'd let her take my inheritance, and then I'd let Peter take my time, my energy, my patience. But I wasn't 18 anymore. I was 38. And I'd had enough. It was the Sunday after Thanksgiving when I finally did something. The house was quiet. Peter had gone out for a run. I went into his home office and opened his laptop. He'd left it open. He never did that. It was like he wanted me to find something. I didn't have to dig. The email was right there on the screen. Open. Unfinished. From Laura. Subject line, "Can't wait for the 15th. I scrolled down. It wasn't dirty. It wasn't explicit. It was worse. It was a list of suggestions for their trip to Napa. The hotel has a great spa. I booked the couple's massage. I'll bring the wine. Don't worry about work. I've already cleared it with the boss. I sat down in his chair and read the whole thing. Then I read it again. My fingers were cold. The room felt smaller. When Peter came back from his run, he was dripping sweat. He looked happy. He always looked happy after a run. He grabbed a towel from the bathroom and dried his face. I'm going to shower, he said. We should grab lunch later. The Thai place. No, I said. He stopped. No, sit down. What's wrong? Are you okay? I pointed to the chair across from me. He sat. I turned the laptop around so he could see the screen. His face didn't go pale. It went flat. I'd seen that look before. It was the look of a man who'd just realized he'd been caught, but hadn't figured out his story yet. I can explain, he said. Can you, Eleanor? It's not what you think. Then what is it? He opened his mouth and closed it. Nothing came out. I waited. I'd been waiting for 15 years. I could wait another minute. It's complicated, he said finally. She and I. We've been working on a project. Together. It's just. We got. Close. Close, he repeated. I nodded. I'd seen a boxer take a hit like that once. The body rocks. The mind scrambles. And then the referee steps in and asks if you can continue. You've been sleeping with her, I said. It wasn't a question. He didn't deny it. He just sat there with that flat look on his face, and I knew. I'd known for a long time. But knowing it and hearing it confirmed were two different things. You're going to Napa with her. The 15th, hotel room. Couples massage. You already cleared it with the boss. She's not the boss. I just meant. The work project. Bullshit. He flinched. I didn't feel bad about it. I want you out of this house by the end of the week, I said. Eleanor, come on. We can talk about this. We can talk, I said. But first you're going to tell me everything. And then you're going to leave. He didn't argue. That was the part that hurt the most. He didn't even try. He sat in that chair with his running clothes still soaked, and he told me about the hotel room, the lunches, the late nights at the office that weren't really at the office. He told me all of it. And when he was done, I stood up and walked to the door. Where are you going? He said. To call your boss. To tell him you've been using company time to carry on an affair with your assistant. Eleanor, you can't do that. I'll lose my job. You should have thought about that before you booked a couples massage. I went into the kitchen and picked up the phone. But I didn't call. I just stood there with it in my hand and thought about what it would be like to be free of him. Really free. Not just separated. Not just divorced. I thought about my grandmother. She used to tell me that people show you who they are, and the only mistake you can make is not believing them. I'd spent my whole life not believing. Not believing that my mother would steal from me. Not believing that my brother would stand there and watch. Not believing that my husband would lie to my face. But I believed it now. And I was done being the one who let people get away with it. I put the phone down. I poured myself a glass of water and drank it in one long swallow. And I walked back to the living room, where Peter was still sitting, still sweating, still flat-faced. Get out of my house, I said. He didn't move. Eleanor, where am I supposed to go? I don't care. You should have thought about that too. He got up. He walked to the door. He turned once to look at me, and I saw it then. The regret. Not for what he'd done. For being caught. I'm sorry, he said. Save it, I said. You don't get to say sorry. You get to leave. The door closed behind him. I stood in the middle of the living room and stared at nothing. And that was when I decided. I wasn't going to just let him go. I wasn't going to make it easy. He'd taken 15 years of my life. He'd taken my trust. And I was going to take everything he had. I didn't know how yet. But I was going to find out. The lawyer's office smelled like old paper and lemon polish. I'd been sitting in the waiting room for 20 minutes, flipping through a magazine I wasn't reading, when the door finally opened and a woman in a navy suit motioned me in. Margaret Chin. She was in her 60s, gray hair pulled back tight, glasses on a chain around her neck. She'd been my grandmother's lawyer. She'd handled the trust. She'd handled the deed. And she'd handled the call I'd made 3 days after Peter left. Sit down, Eleanor. She closed the door behind me. You said this was urgent. I sat. I told her everything. The receipts. The emails. The Napa trip. The way he'd sat in the living room and confessed like he was reading a grocery list. She listened without interrupting. When I was done, she folded her hands on the desk and looked at me over the top of her glasses. What do you want? I don't know yet. Yes, you do. You just haven't said it out loud. I took a breath. I want him to lose everything. Then we need to be strategic. She pulled a file from the drawer. You mentioned the house. Who owns it? We bought it together. Both our names. And the business, his. He started it before we married. But I've been the office manager for the last 10 years. I handle the finances, the payroll, the clients. Margaret nodded slowly. That's leverage. You have access. You know the numbers. I know everything, I said. Good. Then we document. She slid a legal pad across the desk. Write down every account, every password, every client name you can remember. Don't leave anything out. I picked up the pen. My hand was steady. I didn't expect that. I stayed there for 2 hours. I filled 6 pages. And when I left, I had an appointment for the next week and a stack of forms to fill out. That night I sat in my empty house and started going through Peter's things. He'd left in a hurry. He hadn't taken much. Just a suitcase and his laptop. His office was still full of papers, his closet still full of suits, his nightstand still full of the books he'd been meaning to read. I found the bank statements in a box in the back of his closet. I found the credit card bills in his desk drawer. I found a folder labeled Property with the deed to a condo I'd never seen before. It was in his name. Just his. And it had been purchased 6 months earlier. I sat down on the floor and stared at the paper. 6 months. He'd been planning this for 6 months. He'd been looking at other places while I was making him lasagna. He'd been signing papers while I was folding his laundry. I called Margaret the next morning. She told me to take photos of everything and bring them in. Property purchased during the marriage, she said. Even if it's in his name, it's marital property. Unless he used separate funds. Separate funds, money he had before the marriage. Or money he inherited. Did he inherit anything? His uncle left him $10,000. That was 20 years ago. Then it's not separate. The condo is half yours. I leaned back in the chair. Half. I hadn't expected that. He's going to fight this, I said. Let him. Margaret's voice was calm. Let him fight. We have more than enough. I spent the next week in a fog. I went to work. I came home. I made dinner for one. And every night I went through more of Peter's things, finding more receipts, more documents, more proof of what he'd been doing behind my back. I found the text messages on his old phone. He'd left it in the drawer of his nightstand. I charged it up and scrolled through, and I read every single one. They started a year ago. The first one was innocuous. Thanks for the coffee. The last one was explicit. Can't wait to see you. I didn't cry. I didn't feel anything. I just took photos and put the phone back. I found the hotel receipts too. The ones he'd forgotten to throw away. The ones he'd thought I'd never find. And then I found the photos. Not on his phone. In a shoebox at the bottom of the hall closet. Photos of Laura. Photos of her and Peter together. At a restaurant. At a park. In a hotel room. I looked at each one. I studied her face. She was young. She was pretty. She was smiling in every single shot. I put the photos back in the box and closed the closet door. That was the night I made the call. I'd been sitting on the floor of the living room with the box of photos in my lap, and I'd been thinking about my grandmother. She used to say that some people take and take until you have nothing left. And then they ask why you're empty. I dialed Dan's number. He answered on the second ring. Ellie. It's Eleanor. I need to tell you something. What is it? Mom took my trust fund. All of it. She used it to buy you a house. There was silence on the other end. Then Dan's voice came back, careful and measured. I didn't know that. Don't bullshit me. I didn't. I swear. She told me it was her money. She said she'd been saving. Then why didn't you ask her where she got it? I don't know. I trusted her. She's our mother. I wanted to scream. I wanted to reach through the phone and shake him. But I didn't. I took a breath and let it out slow. The house is in my name, I said. Grandma's will was specific. It goes to me. What of the deed? I've got it. And I've got a court order freezing the property. You need to tell Mom. Eleanor, you can't. She's been planning this for months. She sold her car to help with the down payment. Then she shouldn't have spent my money. Dan was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do? I'm going to take it back. All of it. You can't just take a house. I can. And I will. I hung up before he could say anything else. 2 weeks later, I was standing in my mother's kitchen with the moving truck idling in the driveway. She didn't look small then. She looked furious. Eleanor, you have no right. I have every right. I unfolded the deed and laid it on the counter. This is my name. Not yours. Not Dan's. Mine. Your grandmother was confused at the end. She didn't know what she was doing. She knew exactly what she was doing. That's why she put it in writing. My mother's hands were shaking. She picked up the deed and read it, and I watched her face cycle through anger and denial, and then something that looked like fear. Mom, you stole from me. You took the only inheritance I ever had and you gave it to him. Not to me. Not to help me. To help him. He needed it more. Why? Because he's a man, because he's your favorite. Don't say that. It's true. You've always chosen him. You've always put him first. And I let you. I let you do it because I thought if I was good enough, you'd see me. You'd realize I was worth something too. She opened her mouth to argue. I cut her off. But I'm done. I'm done waiting for you to love me. I'm done giving you chances. You had one job. You were supposed to be my mother. And you failed. I turned to Dan, who was standing in the doorway with his new sweater and his new house and his new life that I'd paid for. You too, I said. You knew. You knew she'd taken that money. You knew it was mine. And you took it anyway. He didn't deny it. He just stood there. Pack your things, I said. Both of you. My mother started crying. Not a gentle cry. A loud, hiccuping, ugly cry that filled the room. I'd never seen her cry like that. I'd never seen her cry at all. I watched her for a moment. And then I walked out the door. The moving crew was already bringing the couch through the front door. I stood on the lawn and watched them work. The sky was gray. The air was cold. I pulled my coat tighter and waited. That was the first time I felt like I'd won something. Just a small thing. Just the start. But I knew it wasn't the end. I still had Peter to deal with. And Laura. And the condo I'd never seen. I pulled out my phone and called Margaret. It's done, I said. Good. Now let's talk about your husband. What about him? His lawyer called. They want to settle. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Settle. They want to give you the house and $50,000. In exchange for you not taking the business records. He doesn't want me to tell his clients what he's been doing. Exactly. I looked at the moving crew hauling my mother's furniture onto the truck. Some of it had been mine once. Some of it I'd bought with my own money. Tell them no, I said. Eleanor, $50,000 is a good offer. Margaret, I'm not interested in his money. I'm interested in him losing everything. She was quiet for a moment. Then we'll need to go to court. I know. Are you prepared for that? I watched a man in blue coveralls carry a box labeled kitchen past me and load it onto the truck. My mother was standing in the driveway now, still crying, still shaking, with Dan's arm around her shoulders. Yeah, I said. I'm prepared. I hung up and walked back into the house. The kitchen was half empty. The living room was down to a single lamp. I walked through the empty rooms and thought about my grandmother's house, the one she'd left me, the one my mother had never set foot in. Grandma had built it with her own hands, piece by piece. She'd been a carpenter before she married. She'd framed the walls herself. That house was mine too. It had been mine since I was 12. And my mother knew about it. She'd known the whole time that I had a place to go. She'd just never imagined I'd actually do it. She was wrong. I pulled out my phone and opened the photos of Peter's condo. The one I'd never seen. The one he'd bought without telling me. I looked at the address and typed it into my GPS. 15 minutes away. A little cul-de-sac on the edge of town. Close enough to be convenient. Far enough that we'd never run into each other at the grocery store. I didn't go there that day. I had too much to handle. But I remembered the address. I memorized it. Because I knew I was going to need it. The clinic was quiet that morning. I'd opened the blinds and let the November light in, gray and thin, the kind that made everything look like it was underwater. I was the only one in the office. My receptionist had called in sick. No appointments until 10. I sat at my desk and looked at the spreadsheet I'd pulled from Peter's computer. The one he'd thought I didn't know about. The one with all the client names and their billing cycles and their contact information. He'd built this business from nothing. I'd helped him do it. I'd typed the letters and answered the phones and kept the books when he couldn't afford an accountant. And now he was trying to walk away with all of it. I scrolled down the list. 27 clients. 14 active accounts. Recurring revenue. Established relationships. The whole thing was worth more than the house. The doorbell rang. I looked up. Through the frosted glass, I could see a figure standing on the other side. Small. Blonde. Wearing a coat that cost more than my car. I knew who it was. I didn't move. I watched her ring the bell again. I watched her press her face against the glass, trying to see inside. And then I stood up and walked to the door. I opened it. Laura. Eleanor. She smiled. That same smile from the company picnic, the one that had made my skin crawl. I'm sorry to show up like this. I hope I'm not interrupting. You are. I know. I wanted to talk. I stepped aside. She walked in and looked around the waiting room like she was appraising it. Her eyes landed on the framed photos on the wall, the ones of me and Peter on our wedding day. She stared at them for a long moment, and then she turned back to me. This is nice, she said. Cozy. 6 months ago you were sleeping with my husband. She didn't flinch. I know. That's why I'm here. I leaned against the reception desk and crossed my arms. I wanted to hear what she had to say. I wanted to understand what kind of person walks into her lover's wife's office and asks for a conversation. Peter's scared, she said. He thinks you're going to destroy him. I am going to destroy him. He wants me to talk you out of it. Then he doesn't know me very well. Laura sat down in one of the waiting room chairs. She crossed her legs and folded her hands in her lap. She looked like she'd practiced this. Can I tell you something? She said. No. He told me he was going to leave you. A year ago. Before anything happened. He told me you'd grown apart. He told you a lot of things. He told me you didn't love him anymore. I didn't answer. I just watched her, watched the way she held herself, the way she met my eyes without blinking. She believed it. She believed everything he'd told her. He also told me he'd bought a condo, she said. For us. He said we'd move in together after the divorce. I felt something twist in my chest. It wasn't sadness. It was something colder, something that made me want to laugh in her face. He didn't buy it for you, I said. He bought it for himself. You're just the excuse. She opened her mouth to argue. I cut her off. Laura, I don't know what you want from me. But if you think you're going to walk in here and convince me to go easy on him, you're wasting your time. I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm here to tell you the truth. You're here because he asked you to be. Her face flickered. Just a little. Just enough. He doesn't love you, I said. He's never loved anyone. He married me because I was convenient. I helped him build his business. I kept his house. I made his dinners. And the second he found someone younger, someone who didn't know him the way I did, he jumped. That's not true. Yes, it is. And you know it. That's why you're here. You're scared. You're scared he's going to leave you the same way he left me. She stood up. Her hands were shaking. I could see it, the tremor in her fingers, the way she pressed them against her thighs. I'm pregnant, she said. The words hung in the air between us. I didn't react. I couldn't. I just stood there and let them settle. He doesn't know, she said. I haven't told him yet. I wanted to tell you first. I thought you should know. Why? Because you're his wife. And you deserve the truth. I looked at her. Young and pretty and pregnant with my husband's child. She looked terrified. She looked like she'd just realized the full weight of what she'd done. Does he know you're here? I said. No. What do you want from me? Sympathy? I don't know what I want. I thought you should hear it from me. I walked over to the window and looked out at the street. The cars were passing, the people were walking, the world was going on like nothing had happened. Like my whole life hadn't just shifted again. Are you going to tell him? I said. Eventually. I don't know when. If you want him to stay, that's how you do it. You use the baby. She didn't deny it. She just stood there, staring at the floor. Laura, let me tell you something. I was your age when I married him. I thought I knew everything. I thought he was the one. And then 15 years passed, and I realized I'd spent my whole life taking care of someone who never once took care of me. He loves me. He loves the idea of you. The young, beautiful, uncomplicated version of you. But when you get older, when you start needing things, when you stop being convenient, he'll move on. She started crying, quietly, without sound, tears running down her cheeks, catching on her chin. I didn't feel sorry for her. I didn't feel anything. You should leave, I said. She walked to the door. She paused with her hand on the handle and looked back at me. I didn't want to hurt you, she said. Then you shouldn't have slept with my husband. She opened the door and walked out. I watched her go. I watched her get into a silver sedan and pull away from the curb. I sat down at my desk and put my head in my hands. Pregnant. She was pregnant. I thought about Peter. I thought about his face when I'd told him to leave. I thought about how he hadn't fought, how he'd just taken his suitcase and gone. He'd never fought for me. He'd never once fought for me. And now he was going to have a child with someone else. I picked up my phone and called Margaret. She was just here, I said. Who? Laura. His assistant. She's pregnant. There was a long silence on the other end. Eleanor, Margaret said slowly, that changes things. How? Because if they have a child together, he's going to be fighting for that. He's going to want to protect his assets. He's going to be more motivated to settle. I don't want to settle. I know. But this makes it more complicated. I closed my eyes. I could still see Laura's face, the way she'd looked at me like she was expecting something. Pity. Forgiveness. I didn't have either. I don't care if it's complicated, I said. I want him to lose everything. I want to go to court. I want to take the condo and the business and everything he's ever built. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. I hung up and sat in the silence. The clinic was empty. The light was still gray. And I was still here, sitting in the same chair I'd sat in for 15 years. I thought about my grandmother. She used to say that the best revenge wasn't anger. It was success. It was building something of your own and letting them watch. I thought about the house I'd just taken back. My house. My grandmother's house. The one my mother had tried to steal. I thought about Dan, standing in the driveway with his arm around our mother. I thought about how he'd looked at me like I was the enemy. I thought about Laura, driving away, pregnant with my husband's child. And then I stood up and walked to the filing cabinet. I pulled out the folder labeled Personal. Inside were the documents Margaret had given me. The financial statements. The bank records. The proof of everything Peter had done. I spread them out on the desk and started reading. There was money I didn't know about. An account in Peter's name with $40,000 in it. A credit card I'd never seen with a balance of $7,000. A car loan he'd taken out without telling me. He'd been hiding things for years. I made copies of everything. I put the originals back in the folder. And then I started making calls. The first was to my bank. I froze our joint accounts. I transferred my half into my personal checking. I changed my passwords. The second was to the credit bureaus. I put a freeze on my credit. I didn't want him opening anything in my name. The third was to Peter. He answered on the first ring. Eleanor, your girlfriend, came to see me today. Laura, what did she want? To tell me she's pregnant. He was silent for a long moment. I could hear him breathing, fast and shallow. Are you sure? He said finally. She's sure. She's been sure for a while. I didn't know. I swear. She didn't tell me. She wanted to tell me first. She thought I deserved to know. He didn't say anything. I imagined him sitting in his office, the one I'd helped him build, the one he was about to lose. Peter, I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this once. I'm listening. I'm not going to make this easy on you. I'm not going to let you walk away with the business or the condo or anything else. You're going to lose everything. And when you do, I want you to remember that you did this. Not me. You. Eleanor, please. We can work something out. We could have worked something out before you slept with your assistant. We could have worked something out before you lied to me for a year. But now I'm done. I hung up. I sat in the empty clinic and thought about what I'd just done. I'd frozen the accounts. I'd called the credit bureaus. I'd told Peter exactly what was coming. There was no going back now. I looked at the photos on the wall. The wedding photos. The vacation photos. The photos of me and Peter on our 10th anniversary, smiling at the camera like we meant it. I took them down. Every single one. I stacked them in a box and taped it shut. I didn't want reminders. I didn't want memories. I wanted to move forward. I walked out of the clinic, locked the door behind me, and got in my car. The sky was dark now. The streetlights were on. I drove home to my empty house and sat in the driveway for a long time before I went inside. When I finally did, I didn't turn on the lights. I just stood in the dark and listened to the quiet. And then I pulled out my phone and called my mother. She answered on the third ring. Eleanor, I need to tell you something. What is it? I'm not going to stop. Not with the house, not with anything. You took my inheritance, and I'm going to take it back. Every single thing you ever took from me. She started crying. I could hear it in her voice, the way it cracked. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. Yes, you did. You meant to hurt me. You just didn't think I'd fight back. I hung up. I stood in the dark and thought about my grandmother. She'd been the only one who ever believed in me. She'd left me the house and the money and the deed. She'd known what I was going to become. I'd spent my whole life being someone's victim. My mother's. Dan's. Peter's. Laura's. Not anymore. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. I drank it slowly, standing at the counter in the dark. My phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. Court date set. December 12th. Be ready. I typed back. I'm ready. I put the phone down and looked out the window. The neighbors' lights were on. I could see their silhouettes moving through the kitchen. They looked like they were having dinner. They looked like they were happy. I wondered if I'd ever be happy again. I wondered if I'd ever feel whole. I walked upstairs to my bedroom. I didn't turn on the lights. I just lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling. I thought about the house I'd just taken back. My mother's house. Dan's house. No. My house. I thought about Peter. Laura. The baby. I closed my eyes. Tomorrow. I had work to do. December came in cold. The kind of cold that seeped through the windows and settled in your bones. I'd been living in the empty house for 3 weeks. The moving crew had taken everything that wasn't mine. The furniture, the appliances, the decorative vases my mother had bought with my money. I'd watched it all go. And then I'd walked through the empty rooms and made a list of what I wanted to keep. The kitchen was the only room with any heat. I'd been sleeping on a mattress in the corner of the living room, covered in blankets I'd bought from the Target on Main. The Target. That was where I'd bought everything. I'd walked through the aisles with a cart and a numb feeling in my chest, picking out sheets and pillows and a coffee maker that wasn't fancy but worked. The night before the court date, I sat on the floor and called Margaret. Are you nervous? She asked. No. Good. You shouldn't be. We have everything we need. I hung up and stared at the wall. The paint was fresh. My mother had chosen it. A warm beige that she'd said would make the room feel inviting. I hated it. I'd already picked out a new color. Pale gray. The same color as my grandmother's kitchen. The next morning, I put on my best suit. Navy. Tailored. The one I'd worn to Peter's company Christmas parties, the one he'd always said made me look like a lawyer. I drove to the courthouse with my hands steady on the wheel. Margaret was waiting for me on the steps. She had a briefcase in one hand and a folder in the other. Peter's already inside, she said. He brought his lawyer. Who, David Morrison? He's good. So am I. She smiled. That's what I like about you. We walked in together. The courtroom was small. The benches were mostly empty. Peter was sitting at the defense table with his lawyer. He was wearing a suit I didn't recognize. New. Expensive. He looked tired. Laura wasn't there. I didn't expect her to be. The judge came in. We all stood. I sat down at the table next to Margaret and spread out my documents. Your Honor, Margaret said, we're here to discuss the division of marital assets. The petitioner is Eleanor Harrington. She is seeking full ownership of the marital home, half of all assets purchased during the marriage, and a fair division of the business. Peter's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, my client is willing to offer the marital home and $50,000 in exchange for the petitioner's share of the business records and her agreement not to contact any clients. I leaned over to Margaret. Tell him no. She stood up. Your Honor, the petitioner rejects the offer. We are seeking full access to all business records and a fair division of all assets, including a condo purchased by Mr. Harrington during the marriage without the petitioner's knowledge. The judge looked at the papers. Condo address is 1432 Willow Lane, Margaret said. Purchased 6 months ago. The funds came from a joint account. Peter's face went pale. I watched him. I watched the way he gripped the table, the way his knuckles went white. That condo is mine, he said. I bought it with my own money. Your Honor, Margaret said, the funds came from a joint account that was opened during the marriage. Under state law, that makes it marital property. Half belongs to Mrs. Harrington. The judge looked at Peter's lawyer. Mr. Morrison, do you have evidence to the contrary? David Morrison stood up. We have bank records showing the account was funded by Mr. Harrington's personal earnings. His personal earnings, Margaret said, were generated by a business that Mrs. Harrington helped build. She served as office manager for 10 years. She handled the finances, the payroll, the client relations. The business wouldn't exist without her. The judge nodded slowly. I'll need to see the records. We spent the next 2 hours going through documents. The judge asked questions. I answered them. Peter answered them. His lawyer tried to argue, but Margaret had prepared for everything. By the end of the session, the judge had ruled on 3 things. First, the condo was marital property. Half of it was mine. Second, I had full access to the business records. Third, the case would continue to mediation before going to trial. Peter looked like he'd been hit by a truck. We walked out of the courtroom together. He caught up with me in the hallway. Eleanor, please. Can we talk about what the condo? I can't afford to lose it. Laura's pregnant. We need somewhere to live. I don't care what you need. He grabbed my arm. I pulled away. Don't touch me, I said. Please. You don't understand. She's 6 months along. She can't find a place on her own. Then she should have thought about that before she slept with a married man. He stared at me. His eyes were red. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. I know I messed up, he said. I know I made mistakes. But we can work this out. We can find a solution that works for everyone. There is no solution. There's just what you owe me. I walked away. I didn't look back. I drove to the clinic. I had appointments that afternoon and I needed to work. I needed something to do with my hands. The receptionist looked up when I walked in. There's someone waiting for you, she said. In the office. I walked in. Dan was sitting in my chair. What are you doing here? He stood up. He was wearing a flannel shirt and jeans. He looked like he'd been crying. Eleanor, I need to talk to you. Then talk. I'm sorry. For everything. For the house. For not standing up to Mom. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. You knew exactly what to do. You just didn't do it. He nodded. You're right. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix it. I know. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I wanted you to know. I'm on your side now. I sat down in the chair across from him. What do you mean? Mom. She's been lying to me too. She told me the money was hers. She told me she'd been saving for years. She never mentioned Grandma. She did it to all of us. She just picked you as the favorite. I know. He rubbed his face with his hands. I'm moving out. I'm going to find my own place. I don't want to be involved in this anymore. Where are you going to go? I don't know. Somewhere. I'll figure it out. I looked at him. My brother. The one who'd always gotten everything. The one who'd never had to fight for anything. Fine, I said. Go. But don't expect me to help you. I don't. I wanted to say goodbye. He walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the handle. Eleanor, you're not the bad guy here. I want you to know that. I didn't answer. He left. I sat in my office and stared at the door. The clinic was quiet. The receptionist had gone home. I was alone. I thought about Dan. I thought about the way he'd looked at me, the way he'd said goodbye like he was never coming back. Maybe he wasn't. I thought about my mother. I hadn't spoken to her since the day I'd taken the house. I didn't plan to. I thought about Laura. Pregnant. 6 months along. Living in a condo that was half mine. I picked up my phone and called Margaret. What's the status on the condo? They can't sell it without your signature. It's frozen until the court decides. Good. I don't want them selling it. Eleanor, what are you thinking? I'm thinking that I'm not done yet. I hung up. That night, I drove to 1432 Willow Lane. It was a small condo. 2 bedrooms. A tiny patio. The kind of place you bought when you were starting over. I sat in my car across the street and watched the lights go on and off. I watched Laura move through the kitchen. I watched Peter come home and kiss her on the cheek. They looked happy. They looked like they'd built a life together. But they'd built it on my back. I got out of the car and walked up to the door. I knocked. Peter opened it. His face went pale when he saw me. Eleanor, I want to see the inside. What? The condo? It's half mine. I want to see it. He stepped aside. I walked in. The place was small. There was a couch and a coffee table and a TV mounted on the wall. Laura was in the kitchen. She looked at me with wide eyes. Eleanor, what are you doing here? I came to see my property. This isn't your property. This is our home. I laughed. Your home. This condo was bought with money from a joint account. Your name isn't on the deed. It's just Peter's. And half of it belongs to me. Laura looked at Peter. Is that true? He didn't answer. I walked through the living room. I walked through the bedroom. I opened the closet and saw Laura's clothes hanging next to Peter's. There was a crib in the corner. A little crib with a mobile hanging over it. Nice setup, I said. Eleanor, please. Peter's voice was shaking. This is my home. This is my family. You don't have a family. You have a mistress. There's a difference. Laura started crying. I didn't feel bad about it. I'm going to take this place, I said. Every single thing in it. Just like I took the house. And when I'm done, you're going to have nothing. Peter stepped toward me. You can't do that. You can't take everything. Watch me. I walked out the door and got in my car. I didn't look back. That night, I called Margaret. I want to file for full ownership of the condo. Eleanor, that's going to be difficult. The judge has to approve it. Then make them approve it. Would you consider a settlement? They might be willing to give you more than half. I don't want more than half. I want it all. Margaret was quiet for a moment. I'll see what I can do. I hung up. I sat in my empty house and looked at the walls. The gray paint was drying. I'd spent the weekend painting the living room. It looked better now. It looked like something I'd chosen. I thought about my grandmother. She'd left me this house. She'd left me the deed. She'd known what was coming. I'd been carrying around her gift for 23 years, waiting for the moment I'd be strong enough to use it. That moment had come. I picked up the photo of her. The one I'd kept on my nightstand since she died. She was smiling. She had her hands on her hips and a garden hat on her head. A grandma, I said, I think I'm finally ready. I put the photo down and went to sleep. The next morning, I woke up early. I made coffee. I sat on the floor of the living room and watched the sun rise through the windows. The gray paint looked good. It looked like a fresh start. My phone buzzed. Margaret. Good morning, Eleanor. I've got news. Good news or bad news mixed. Peter's lawyer called. They want to avoid a trial. They're offering you the condo and the house in exchange for dropping the business claim. The business is worth more. I know. But I think they're scared. They don't want the trial. I thought about it. The condo and the house. Both of them mine. Peter and Laura would have to move out. They'd have to start over somewhere else. They'd have to figure out how to raise a baby without a place to live. Take the deal, I said. But I have one condition. What? I want to be the one to tell them. I want to walk into that condo and tell them myself. Margaret laughed. Eleanor, you're something else. I know. I hung up. I put on my suit. I got in my car. I drove to 1432 Willow Lane. Peter opened the door. He looked worse than he had yesterday. His eyes were red. He was wearing the same clothes. Eleanor, I don't want to do this today. I can't. Too bad. I've got news. I walked in. Laura was on the couch. She looked at me like I was a ghost. What is it? Peter said. I'm taking the deal. The condo and the house. Both of them. In exchange for dropping the business claim. Peter's face went pale. What does that mean? It means you have 30 days to vacate this property. Both of you. I'm taking possession. Laura stood up. You can't do that. Actually, I can. The court has already approved it. I just came to tell you in person. Peter grabbed my arm. Eleanor, please. Laura's pregnant. She can't move right now. I pulled away. You should have thought about that before you stole my life. I walked out the door. I got in my car and drove away. I didn't look back. The next 30 days were a blur. I packed up the house. I moved the furniture. I painted more rooms. I filled the kitchen with things I'd bought with my own money. Dan came by once. He helped me move a couch. We didn't talk much. He left after an hour. My mother called. I didn't answer. Peter called. I didn't answer. Laura called. I answered. Eleanor, we need to talk. About what? Of the condo. We found a place. We're moving out. Good. Can we meet? I want to say something. Fine. Tomorrow. Same place. She showed up at the house the next morning. She looked tired. Her belly was round. She was carrying a bag of baby clothes. I wanted to give these to you, she said. I don't want them. Please. Just take them. I don't need them. I looked at the bag. Pink onesies. A little blanket. Something for a baby girl. Laura, I said, I don't want your pity. I'm not giving you pity. I'm giving you closure. I took the bag. I didn't open it. Thank you, I said. It was all I could think of. She smiled. A small smile, tired and worn. I'm sorry, she said. I know. She walked away. I watched her get in her car and drive off. I stood in my driveway and held the bag of baby clothes. I didn't cry. I didn't feel anything. I walked inside and put the bag in the closet. I wasn't going to let her win. I wasn't going to let any of them win. I was going to live my life. The way I wanted. The way I'd always wanted. And I was going to be happy. I just had to figure out how. January was the coldest month I could remember. The kind of cold that cracked the pavement and made the car doors stick. I'd been living in the house for 2 months now. The gray paint was up. The furniture was in. I'd bought new dishes, new towels, a new bed. Everything was mine. Everything I touched had been chosen by me. I was sitting in the kitchen on a Sunday morning when my phone rang. It was Margaret. She never called on Sundays. Eleanor, we have a problem. What is it? Peter's contesting the divorce. He's claiming you coerced him into signing the agreement. What? I don't know what he's trying to pull. But he's filed a motion. He wants the court to reopen the case. I stood up. My coffee went cold. I have to see him. Eleanor, that's not a good idea. I don't care. I hung up. I got in my car and drove to Peter's new apartment. The address Laura had given me. A small place on the edge of town. The kind you rent when you have nowhere else to go. I knocked on the door. Peter opened it. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. His shirt was untucked. His eyes were hollow. What are you doing here? Contesting the divorce? You're contesting the divorce. He stepped aside. I walked in. The apartment was bare. A couch, a table, a TV on the floor. There were boxes everywhere. Half-packed. Like they'd given up on moving. Laura left, he said. What? She left 2 days ago. Took the baby and went to her mother's. I stared at him. I didn't know what to say. She said she couldn't do it anymore. She said I was too broken. Too consumed by the divorce. So you're contesting it? I'm trying to get something back. Anything. I have nothing, Eleanor. Nothing. The money, the house, the condo. It's all gone. He started crying. Sobbing really. Big, ugly tears that made his face red. I watched him. I watched the man I'd married fall apart in front of me. Peter, I said, you did this. I know. You lied to me for a year. You had an affair with your assistant. You bought a condo with our money. I know. Now you're reaping what you sowed. He wiped his face with his sleeve. I know. I stood in his bare apartment and looked at him. He was pathetic. He was broken. He had nothing left. And I still didn't feel sorry for him. I'm not going to give you anything, I said. Not the house. Not the money. Not the condo. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. Eleanor, please. No. You don't get to ask me for anything. You don't get to beg. You had 15 years to be a good husband. You failed. I walked out the door. I sat in my car for a long time. The engine was running. The heat was on. I stared at the steering wheel and tried to feel something. I felt nothing. I drove home. I made dinner. I ate alone. I watched TV. I went to bed. The next morning, I called Margaret. Drop the contest, I said. What? I want you to drop it. I want to give him something. Just a little. Eleanor, you worked so hard to get everything. I know. But I'm not trying to destroy him. I'm trying to move on. Margaret was quiet for a moment. What do you want to give him? The car. The old one. The one we bought together. He can have it. Are you sure? Yes. I hung up. I didn't tell Peter. I didn't want to talk to him. I just wanted it to be over. 2 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. I got the house. I got the condo. I got half of the business. Peter got the car. I was free. I sat in my living room and looked at the documents. They were official. They were signed. They were done. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I felt empty. I called Dan. Did you hear? I said. Hear what? The divorce is final. Congratulations. I think. Thanks. Eleanor, are you okay? I don't know. Maybe you should come over. We could talk. I went to his apartment. He was living in a small place on the north side. Clean. Organized. He had a plant on the windowsill. I got a job, he said. Construction. The pay's not great, but it's honest. That's good. Mom called me yesterday. She wants to see you. I don't want to see her. I know. I told her that. I sat on his couch. He sat across from me. Eleanor, what are you going to do now? I don't know. You've got the house. You've got the money. You've got your freedom. I know. So what's the problem? I looked at my hands. They were still. They weren't shaking anymore. I don't know who I am, I said. I've spent my whole life being someone's wife, someone's daughter, someone's sister. I've never just been me. So be you. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. You just have to decide who you want to be. I thought about it. Who did I want to be? I didn't have an answer. I went home that night and sat in the kitchen. The house was quiet. The lights were off. I sat in the dark and thought about everything. My mother. My father. My grandmother. I thought about Peter. Laura. The baby. I thought about Dan. He'd changed. He was trying. I wondered if I could change too. A week later, I got a call from Margaret. Eleanor, I need to tell you something. What is it? I got a letter from Laura's lawyer. She wants to talk to you. She says it's important. I don't want to talk to her. I think you should. She mentions something about the baby. The baby is not my responsibility. I know. But she said it's about Peter. I agreed to meet. We met at a coffee shop downtown. Laura was waiting at a table. She looked older. Worn. Eleanor, thank you for coming. What do you want? Peter's been calling me. He wants to see the baby. I don't know what to do. That's not my problem. I know. I thought you should know. He's not doing well. He's been drinking. He's not my problem either. Laura nodded. I know. I wanted to tell you. I thought you deserved to know. Thanks, I said. But I don't want to know. I stood up. Eleanor, wait. What? I'm sorry. For everything. I was young. I didn't know what I was doing. It's too late for sorry. I know. But I'm still sorry. I walked out the door. I didn't look back. That night, I called Dan. I met with Laura today, I said. How was it? Weird. She apologized. She told me Peter's drinking. Are you going to do anything about it? No. It's not my problem. Eleanor, you can't just pretend he doesn't exist. Watch me. I hung up. The next day, I went to work. The clinic was busy. I had appointments back to back. I didn't think about Peter or Laura or any of it. At 5 o'clock, I locked the door and went home. I made dinner. I ate alone. I watched TV. I went to bed. It was a routine. A boring, predictable routine. But it was mine. A month passed. I started to feel normal. I started to feel like myself again. I stopped thinking about Peter. I stopped thinking about my mother. I stopped thinking about the house. I started thinking about the future. I called Dan. Hey, I said. What are you doing this weekend? Nothing. Why, wanna come over? I'll cook. Sure. I'll bring beer. He came over on Saturday. I made lasagna. The same recipe I'd made for Peter. But this time, I made it for myself. Dan sat at the table and ate. This is really good, he said. Thanks. I learned from Grandma. We talked for a while. About work. About life. About nothing. You seem better, he said. I am better. Good. I'm glad. He left after dinner. I cleaned up the kitchen and stood at the window. I thought about my grandmother. She'd been alone too. She'd been widowed young. She'd raised my mother by herself. And she'd built a life. A good life. I could do that too. The next morning, I went for a walk. The sun was out. The air was cold. I walked through the neighborhood and looked at the houses. I passed a couple pushing a stroller. The baby was crying. They were laughing. I passed an old man walking his dog. I passed a group of teenagers on skateboards. Life was happening. All around me. And I was part of it. I came home and sat on the porch. The sun was warm. The breeze was cool. I thought about everything I'd been through. Everything I'd lost. Everything I'd gained. I'd lost my mother. I'd lost Peter. I'd lost 15 years of my life. But I'd gained freedom. I'd gained independence. I'd gained myself. I was finally becoming the person my grandmother had always believed I could be. I smiled. It was a small smile. But it was real. I went inside and called Margaret. Margaret, it's Eleanor. How are you, Eleanor? I'm good. I'm really good. I'm glad. I wanted to thank you. For everything. I couldn't have done it without you. You could have. You just needed someone to believe in you. I hung up. I stood in the middle of my living room and looked around. This was my house. My life. My choice. I'd earned every square inch of it. I walked into the kitchen and poured a glass of water. I leaned against the counter and thought about the future. I was 40 years old. I had a house. I had a business. I had a brother who was trying to make amends. I didn't have Peter. I didn't have my mother. But I had myself. And that was enough. I went to bed that night and slept through the entire night. No dreams. No nightmares. Just sleep. I woke up the next morning and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Spring came slow. The snow melted in patches, leaving muddy spots on the lawn. I'd planted tulips along the front walk, the same pink ones my grandmother used to grow. They were just starting to push through the soil, green shoots that looked fragile but weren't. I knew that now. Nothing that survived a winter was fragile. I was at the clinic when the letter came. Hand-delivered. Heavy paper. My mother's handwriting on the envelope. I recognized the loopy letters, the way she dotted her eyes with little circles. I didn't open it. I put it in my desk drawer and left it there. 3 days later, I opened it. The letter was short. 3 paragraphs. She said she was sorry. She said she'd been wrong. She said she wanted to see me. I read it twice. Then I folded it and put it back in the envelope. I didn't call her. I didn't know what to say. Dan came over that weekend. We sat on the porch with coffee and watched the neighbors walk their dogs. She sent me a letter. I said. Who, Mom? What did it say? She said she was sorry. Do you believe her? I don't know. He was quiet for a minute. I saw her last week. She looks old. Really old. She's lost weight. Good. Eleanor. What she stole from me. She lied to me. She chose you over me. I know. I'm not saying you have to forgive her. I'm just saying. She's our mother. I didn't answer. The next week, I got a call from Margaret. Eleanor, I've got something you need to see. What is it? Peter's been in the news. I pulled up the article. Peter had been arrested. Drunk driving. He'd crashed his car into a ditch. No one was hurt. But he'd been charged. I read the article twice. Then I put my phone down. I didn't feel anything. I'd stopped feeling things for him a long time ago. Laura called me that night. I answered because I didn't know what else to do. Did you see the news? She asked. Yes. He called me from jail. He wanted me to bail him out. Did you know? I told him I was done. Good. Eleanor, I know I have no right to ask you this. But can we meet just one more time? No. Please. I need to tell you something. Tell me on the phone. I can't. It has to be in person. I agreed. We met at the same coffee shop. She was holding a baby. A little girl with dark hair and blue eyes. She was wrapped in a pink blanket. This is Lily, she said. She's 6 months old. She's pretty. She looks like Peter. Everyone says so. I looked at the baby. She was sleeping, her mouth open, her tiny fingers curled into fists. Laura, what did you want to tell me? I'm moving. Back to my mother's. I can't stay here. Not after everything. Okay. I wanted to say goodbye. And I wanted to apologize. For real this time. Not just the words. I wanted to show you I meant it. You don't have to apologize. I know. But I want to. I sat there and listened. She told me about her life. Her mother. Her sister. The baby. She told me about the things she'd given up to be with Peter. Her job. Her apartment. Her friends. I was stupid, she said. I thought he loved me. I thought he'd leave you for me. But he never did. He was never going to leave. He just wanted someone to make him feel young. He used you, I said. I know. And you let him. I know. We sat in silence. The baby woke up and started crying. Laura picked her up and rocked her. Eleanor, I know you don't forgive me. I don't expect you to. But I want you to know. I learned my lesson. I'll never do anything like this again. Good. She stood up. She gave me a hug. I didn't hug back. She walked out the door. That was the last time I saw her. I drove home. The tulips were opening. Pink and red and yellow. They were beautiful. I sat on the porch and watched the sun go down. I thought about Laura. I thought about Peter. I thought about the baby. And I thought about my mother. I called Dan. Let's go see her, I said. Who, Mom? Are you sure? Yes. We drove to her house the next day. It was small. Smaller than I remembered. The paint was peeling. The lawn was overgrown. She opened the door. She looked old. Frail. Her hair was gray. Her face was lined. Eleanor, she said. Her voice broke. Mom. Please come in. We walked inside. The house was dark. There were boxes everywhere. It looked like she was moving. I'm selling the house, she said. I can't afford it anymore. Where are you going to go? I don't know. Somewhere small. I sat down on the couch. Dan sat next to me. I got your letter, I said. Did you read it? Yes. And Mom, I don't know if I can forgive you. She nodded. I understand. But I don't want to hate you anymore. She started crying. I watched her cry. I didn't cry. I'd done all my crying years ago. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I know. Is there anything I can do to make it right? No. There's nothing. We sat in silence. The clock ticked on the wall. I want you to see something, she said. She got up and went to the kitchen. She came back with a photo album. I opened it. It was full of pictures of me. Baby pictures. School pictures. Pictures of me with my grandmother. I kept them, she said. I never threw them away. Mom, that doesn't fix anything. I know. But I wanted you to have them. I took the album. I didn't open it again. We left after an hour. I hugged her before I left. I didn't know if I meant it. But I did it anyway. Dan drove me home. Are you okay? He asked. I don't know. Me neither. We sat in the car. The engine was running. The heat was on. She's dying, I said. Did you see her? She's dying. I know. I put my head in my hands. I'm not ready to lose her. You don't have to. She's still here. I know. But she's different. She's not the same. We sat in silence. The windshield was fogging up. Eleanor, Dan said, you did the right thing. I know. So why do I feel so bad? He didn't answer. I went to bed that night and stared at the ceiling. I thought about my mother. I thought about Peter. I thought about Laura. I thought about my grandmother. She used to say that the most important thing in life was to love. To love even when it hurt. To love even when it wasn't returned. I didn't know if I could do that. But I was willing to try. The next morning, I called my mother. Can I come over? I asked. Of course. Anytime. I went to her house. We sat in the kitchen and drank tea. It was awkward. We didn't know what to say. But we were trying. And that's all I could ask for. The weeks passed. Spring turned to summer. I went to work. I came home. I planted more flowers. I started painting the house. Dan came over for dinner once a week. We talked about nothing. It was nice. I didn't talk to Peter. I didn't talk to Laura. I talked to my mother. It was hard. She was still the same person who'd stolen from me. But she was also the person who'd raised me. The person who'd held me when I was scared. The person who'd taught me to ride a bike. I didn't forgive her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I was trying. And that was enough. It was July when I got the news. My mother had a stroke. She was in the hospital. I drove there with Dan. We sat in the waiting room for hours. The doctors came out and told us she was stable. But she'd lost some function. Her speech was slow. Her right side was weak. I went into her room. She was lying in the bed. She looked small. Childlike. Mom, I said. Eleanor. I'm here. I sat down in the chair next to her bed. I took her hand. It was cold. I'm sorry, she said. It's okay. No, it's not okay. I was a bad mother. You were a complicated mother. She smiled. A small smile. I love you, she said. Me too. She squeezed my hand. Then she closed her eyes. I sat there for a long time. I didn't cry. I just Saturday Dan came in. He stood on the other side of the bed. He put his hand on her shoulder. We stayed with her until the end. It came slow. Peaceful. She just stopped breathing. One moment she was there. The next she wasn't. Dan started crying. I didn't. I just stood there and held her hand. The funeral was small. Just me and Dan and a few neighbors. We buried her next to my father. I put a bouquet of tulips on the grave. Pink ones. Eleanor, Dan said, what are you going to do now? I don't know. Maybe it's time to start living. Yeah, maybe it is. I went home that night. I sat on the porch and watched the sunset. The sky was orange and pink. It was beautiful. I thought about my mother. I thought about my father. I thought about my grandmother. They were all gone now. Everyone who had raised me. But I was still here. And I was still standing. I went inside and made a cup of tea. I drank it in the kitchen. The house was quiet. The lights were off. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I was just tired. I went to bed. I slept through the night. The next morning, I woke up to a new day. I made breakfast. I drank coffee. I got in my car and drove to work. It was just a day. A normal day. Nothing special. But it was mine. I got through it. I came home. I made dinner. I ate alone. I watched TV. I went to bed. I did it again the next day. And the day after that. I was building a life. A simple life. A boring life. But it was my life. And I was okay with that. Because I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't pretending to be someone else. I was just Eleanor. And that was enough. It was a Tuesday in September when Peter showed up at my door. I knew it was him before I opened it. I could see his silhouette through the frosted glass, the same way I'd seen Laura's silhouette on that November morning. But this time I knew what I was walking into. I opened the door. He was thinner than I remembered. His face was drawn. His clothes hung loose on his frame. He'd been wearing that suit the last time I'd seen him, and it didn't fit him anymore. Eleanor. Peter. Can I come in? I stepped aside. He walked in and looked around. The house had changed. The gray paint. The new furniture. The flowers on the table. He looked at everything like he was seeing it for the first time. You've done a lot of work, he said. I've had time. He sat down on the couch. I sat across from him in the armchair. We were both quiet for a moment. I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen. I'm not here to ask for anything, he said. Then why are you here? I don't know. I wanted to see you. I looked at him. The man I'd married. The man I'd loved. The man who'd destroyed everything. I heard about your mother, he said. I'm sorry. Thank you. Are you doing okay? I'm fine. He nodded. He looked at his hands. They were shaking. I'm not doing okay, he said. I don't know if you care. But I'm not. I don't care, I said. He flinched. Like I'd hit him. He'd earned that. I deserved that, he said. You deserved worse. I know. We sat in silence. The clock ticked. I lost everything, he said. The job. The money. The condo. Laura. The baby. I don't even get to see her anymore. Laura's mother won't let me. That's not my problem. I know. I'm not asking you to fix it. I'm telling you. Peter, why are you here? He looked up. His eyes were red. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I know it doesn't matter. I know it doesn't fix anything. But I need you to know. Okay, I said. You said it. Now leave. Eleanor, please. Just give me 5 minutes. I looked at him. He was pathetic. He was broken. He had nothing left. But he was still the man who'd taken everything from me. He was still the man who'd lied to my face. 5 minutes, I said. He nodded. He took a breath. I was wrong, he said. About everything. I was wrong to have the affair. I was wrong to lie to you. I was wrong to buy that condo. I was wrong to contest the divorce. I've spent the last year going over everything I did, and I can't find a single thing I did right. Peter, I don't need to hear this. Yes, you do. Because I need to say it. I spent 15 years with you, and I never told you the truth. Not once. I told you what you wanted to hear. I told you what I thought you needed. And I never told you the real thing. Which was that I was scared. I was scared of being alone. I was scared of failing. I was scared of being seen for who I really was. And the whole time I was taking from you, I was telling myself I was doing it for us. But I wasn't. I was doing it for me. I didn't say anything. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, he said. And I blew it. I blew it because I was too weak to be honest. Too weak to just say I wasn't happy. Were you ever happy? He was quiet for a long time. I don't know, he said. I thought I was. I thought I was happy because I had you. But I didn't know what happy meant. I just knew I couldn't be alone. I sat there and let his words land. I didn't feel any of them. They were too late. Too little. You made a choice, I said. Every day. You made a choice to lie. You made a choice to cheat. You made a choice to steal. Those weren't mistakes. They were choices. I know. And you have to live with them. I know. I stood up. I walked to the window and looked out at the street. The sun was setting. The sky was orange. Peter, you need to leave. Eleanor, please. Just one more thing. What? I loved you. I really did. I just didn't know how. I turned around. You didn't love me. You loved what I did for you. You loved having someone to come home to. You loved having someone to take care of you. But you never loved me. That's not true. Yes, it is. And you know it. That's why you left so easily. That's why you walked out the door without fighting. You didn't lose me. You just lost your safety net. He started to argue. I cut him off. Enough is enough, I said. I've spent my entire life being used by people who said they loved me. My mother. You. Dan. You took and you took and you took. And the only thing I ever got back was promises you never kept. He didn't say anything. I'm done, I said. I'm done being the person who gives and gives until there's nothing left. I'm done letting people walk all over me. I'm done forgiving people who haven't earned it. Eleanor, you don't have to forgive me. I know. I'm not going to. He stood up. He walked toward me. He stopped a few feet away. Then what are you going to do? Live my life? Without you. Without my mother. Without anyone who doesn't deserve to be in it. He nodded. I understand. Good. Now leave. He walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the handle. Eleanor, I'm sorry. I know. He walked out. The door closed behind him. I stood in the window and watched him get into his car and drive away. The sun was gone. The streetlights were on. I turned around and looked at the living room. The couch. The chair. The flowers. This was my life now. My house. My space. My choice. I walked into the kitchen and poured a glass of water. I stood at the sink and drank it slowly. The phone buzzed. Dan, how'd it go? He came. What did he say? He said he was sorry. Did you believe him? No. Good. I smiled. A small smile. But it was real. Dan, I said, I think I'm going to be okay. I know you are. You always were. I hung up. I walked through the house. I turned off the lights. I went upstairs to my bedroom. I stood in front of the mirror. I looked at myself. I looked at my face. My eyes. My hair. I was 40 years old. I was alone. I had nothing but what I'd built for myself. And that was enough. I got into bed. I pulled the covers up to my chin. I looked at the ceiling. I thought about everything. My mother. Peter. Laura. Dan. My grandmother. They'd all been part of my life. Some of them still were. Some of them never would be again. But they'd all taught me something. My mother taught me that blood didn't mean love. My grandmother taught me that love was a choice. Peter taught me that trust could be broken. Laura taught me that redemption was possible. Dan taught me that people could change. And I'd learned it all. Every lesson. I closed my eyes. I didn't think about Peter. I didn't think about Laura. I didn't think about my mother. I thought about tomorrow. The clinic. The flowers. The sunlight. I thought about the person I was becoming. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The next morning, I woke up early. The sun was coming through the window. I got out of bed and walked to the window. The tulips were still blooming. Pink and red and yellow. They looked beautiful. I got dressed. I drank coffee. I got in my car and drove to work. The clinic was busy. The receptionist was already there. She smiled when I walked in. Good morning, Eleanor. Good morning, Sarah. I walked into my office. I sat down at my desk. I looked at the photos on the wall. I'd put new ones up. Pictures of my grandmother. Pictures of Dan. Pictures of the house. Pictures of me. I looked at the photo of my grandmother. She was smiling. She was standing in her garden, her hands on her hips. I did it, Grandma, I said. I made it. I got to work. The day passed. The patients came and went. The phone rang. The paperwork got done. It was a normal day. A boring day. A day just like any other. But it was my day. My life. My choice. I drove home. I made dinner. I ate alone. I watered the flowers. I sat on the porch and watched the sun go down. The sky turned orange and pink. The air was warm. My phone buzzed. Dan, hey, he said. How was your day? Good. Eleanor, I've been thinking. About what about Mom? And you. And everything that happened. What about it? None of it was your fault. You know that, right? I know. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything. For not standing up to her. For not defending you. For taking the house. You already apologized. I know. But I'm going to keep saying it until you believe me. I smiled. I believe you. Good. We talked for a few minutes. Then we hung up. I sat on the porch. The stars were coming out. I could hear the crickets. I was okay. I was going to be okay. I didn't know what the future held. But I wasn't scared. I'd survived worse. I walked inside. I locked the door. I went upstairs. I looked in the mirror again. The same face. The same eyes. The same hair. But I was different. Stronger. Wiser. Free. I was Eleanor. Not Peter's wife. Not my mother's daughter. Not Dan's sister. Just Eleanor. And that was more than enough. I got into bed. I turned off the light. I closed my eyes and fell asleep. I dreamed of my grandmother. She was standing in her garden, holding a bouquet of pink tulips. She was smiling at me. Eleanor, she said, I'm proud of you. I smiled back. Thank you, Grandma. I woke up the next morning and felt the sun on my face. I got out of bed. I got dressed. I drank coffee. I got in my car. I drove to the clinic. I unlocked the door. I walked into my office. I sat down at my desk and looked at the photos on the wall. My grandmother. Dan. The house. Me. I was building a new life. A life I'd built myself. A life I'd chosen. And that was everything.